Hi everybody, this is Homestead Hummingbirds. Our little friend Finnegan just left the leftmost feeder outside today. It's a nice little day before it rains. Just wanted to talk to you a little bit about one of the easier ways we've found to make our own nectar, especially if you're using small batches early on when you don't have too many migrators in. This is one of the easier ways I've found to make it. People are often debated about whether to boil it or not, so what we do is, because we change it out very frequently, I only make small batches and I like to use this method. One of the things that I wanted to talk about also before that is why should we make our own nectar? Well, sometimes the mixes that you get on the shelves in the store, there's all sorts of preservatives in them to make them more shelf stable, for one thing. And a lot of them will contain red dye. And if you do a little bit of research and digging on it, you'll find that a lot of people, even Cornell, Audubon, notable ornithologists, they'll recommend not using red dye. Why? Because it's got the potential to harm our hummingbird friends. We've got these little cards here that we use. Not quite easy to see, but kind of how we were talking about, that red dye is unnecessary. It can even do them harm. There's a bunch of different groups that recommend not using it. So to be safe, one of the things we've done over the past close to 7 years now is make our own nectar here at home. I don't use red dye. I use regular white sugar and water, and that's it. And you can easily look up how to make this online. I'm going to include below in the video some information about how to make it for yourself. Make sure that you keep your feeders cleaned thoroughly and that you change your nectar out often. That's one of the big things, especially where we are in the south. We get a lot of heat, a lot of humidity. So one of the big things that we do is change our feeders out frequently. I also make sure to clean them thoroughly too. And I'll leave some information about that below as well. One of the big things about cleaning them is that soap and water is not going to do the job. You're not going to clean out and get the mold, the bacteria out of your feeders that you need to be getting out. You want to clean them thoroughly. I've got a video that I'll put in the description from Carol Turek of Hummingbird Spot about how to clean your feeders. It absolutely changed the way I approached cleaning ours out. And I use a lot of her methods from that. Just give it a watch and you'll learn a little bit more about why we need to keep them clean and how to do that. Now, for getting started, I want to show you how to make your nectar so much simpler. Like I said, people are debated about boiling it, so what we're going to do is we're just going to make a small batch for these feeders that we change out basically daily, if not every other day. A good way to do it, especially when we've only got a few hummingbirds visiting. We're not going to see that many till probably around July, so let me show you how to do that. What you'll see here is we have the 1/4 cup of sugar and 1 cup of water. This is the 4:1 ratio where you've got the 4 parts water to the 1 part sugar. You also see my other cleaned feeder over here with my funnel and a shaker bottle. Why do we have a shaker bottle? Well, that's the way that is pretty easy that I've found to make up small batches of nectar. So what we do is we put the ingredients into the shaker bottle, we mix it up really good. Sometimes when you get started, the water will be a little bit cloudy as the sugar is getting dissolved. You really want to make sure you get your sugar completely dissolved. You can see it in the bottom once you do it. And then once the water has settled, then you add it in to your feeder. You can probably hear my friend Finnegan in the background. He's flying up into his favorite tree. So what we're going to do now is put our ingredients in the shaker bottle. Make sure you have the lid on really, really good. Make sure it's on tight. You don't want to start doing this and have it go all over the place. Now what you'll do is take your shaker bottle and just mix it up like you're making a protein drink. You can find these little mixing bottles at quite a few different stores. They're pretty easy to come by. Now what you want to do is make sure that your sugar is dissolved well enough. Right now I see a little bit of granules of it in the bottom, so I'll give it a little bit more of a shake. And now you can see a little bit of how it's kind of cloudy to start with. So what we'll do is we'll let this sit for a second and let it clear up, and then I will add this to my hummingbird feeder and put it out. Okay, now that our mix is set for a moment, everything's cleared up, the sugar's fully dissolved, so we're going to take it out of the shaker bottle, just pour it into our funnel and into our hummingbird feeder. There we go. Now it's time to put everything back together and hang the hummingbird feeder out for our friend Finnegan. So this is why it's a good idea to have multiple feeders at home, not just your one or two that you hang out, but to have some on backup. Especially if you get a lot of hummingbirds, sometimes they'll get a little bit confused whenever the feeders aren't up, and sometimes, especially ruby throats, people say, oh, they like to buzz around my head and seem like they're kind of upset with me for taking the feeder away. So usually the best thing to do is we have some on backup, and as soon as we're taking the other one to fill up and clean, then what I'll do is just immediately replace it with a new full clean feeder. And then that way there's no waiting on their part. They're happy, they're ready to go, they've got fresh clean food, and I've got time to take my feeders and give them a good clean. There's our little buddy. Hi, Finnegan. The little guy we call Finnegan. He's looking around examining things before he flies off. He's got a favorite perch up in the tree that he likes to visit. And he's very used to the same type of feeder. If I put a different one up, he's trying to figure out what's going on. He was over at the other two beside me that I took down, getting ready to clean them, and he flew down onto the ground and was actually looking at those feeders, kind of wondering what was going on. He's a cute little guy. One thing I wanted to mention as well is that normally these feeders in this location are going to be in the shade most of the time. Right now there's a little bit of sun out, but because of that sun and that humidity, I try to move them back into the shade a little bit more. That way I don't have a problem as bad with Nectar spoiling just sitting in direct sunlight all day, especially in the summertime. So once they get used to where the nectar is at, I'll move it a little bit further back in the shade, and then they'll just follow along with it, and it's perfectly fine. So what I'll normally do is take that mixture and I'll spread it out amongst a few different feeders. That way it's not all in one feeder being wasted when I change it out so frequently. It'll make just enough to go through a couple of feeders that I've got out in different areas to prevent territorial behavior with the hummingbirds, and then that'll last me until I'm ready to change again. Thank you everybody for watching how to make your own hummingbird nectar at home pretty quickly and pretty easily. Thanks for visiting Homestead Hummingbirds, and we'll see you again next time.